Hey y'all, this is Stevie with Redneckonomics. Tonight I'm here with the ladies from War Media, Shanda and Amber. And our guest tonight is Steve from Slow News Day. Welcome, Steve. It's good to have you on here.
Thank you. It's good to see you again. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I really wanted to have you on to talk a bit about what you've been working on with the Clovers for Assange and the upcoming rally. And so could you tell us a little bit about what Clovers for Assange is, when it is, the details?
Absolutely. So last year around this time, one of the longtime WikiLeaks supporters and let's sort of like out in public members of Anonymous, or at least the account is, came up with the hashtag Clovers for Assange. What it was any luck that we had, we were going to donate to Julian, who, um, I mean, let's be honest, could use some. Um, Mostly because he's not getting any help through, the rule of law or I guess the legitimate legal process. Even though they denied extradition, and we can get into that in a little bit. The hashtag took off. It was at sort of a low point in action as far as the extradition case had been going. So at a point where like people weren't necessarily thinking about it, it got people to talk about it again. People then started putting the clover emoji in their social media handles as a way to signify that they were WikiLeaks supporters. So internationally, it's become a way for WikiLeaks supporters to identify each other in the digital space. So we uh, we know that there's a couple of big dates coming up in the WikiLeaks calendar and in Julian Assange's calendar. One of them is April 11th. It marks 2 years from when he was illegally and violently dragged from the Ecuadorian embassy. That happened on April 11th. So, as a way to kind of reawaken public support, capitalize on the support that has been growing since the second round of the extradition hearing in September, and through the denial of that rendition, um, in the form of no, we're not going to extradite you because U.S. prisons are terrible, and you have suicidal ideation, and you're smart, so you could figure out how to do it. But we agree with everything the Justice Department said in terms of their legal case. We're trying to capitalize on all of that support, get everybody out into the physical space. Things have opened up quite a bit again. More people are starting to come outside and play. It's going to be St. Patrick's Day. We're hijacking the holiday. What we're going to do, we're calling it Clover's for Assange because we're hijacking St. Patrick's Day, but we're taking the same basic concepts as the hashtag. This is a way for WikiLeaks supporters to identify each other, come out, get in the street, meet one another. So many times people can feel like they're the only person in their community that thinks the way that they do. So we understand, obviously, that not everybody can get to Washington, D.C. Um, Throw an event in your town or in the nearest major city. There are already a number that are already going on. We are helping people connect with people that live nearby them, either in the same city or close by. If you're nervous about organizing an event, you will help you. We've got a couple of different toolkits that we can make available. We can walk you through a permit process if that's what you're going to do. It's hella easy. Um, and There are so far, I think, 14 events internationally for that day. We're going to meet. There's a plaza in DC where Fox, NBC, so by extension MSNBC, and C-SPAN are located. We're going to meet there. We're going to march to the CNN building in DC. Then um, a separate but no less important fuck censorship protest will be meeting us at the CNN building, and we are all together going to march to Google. We are trying to organize a simultaneous protest in front of Google at Mountain View while that's going on. We would like to then, the following day, we're going to be at the Justice Department. And we do think that the level of absurdity of the situation demands an equally absurd response in the form of protest. So we're making massive puppets, and we're going to be we're going to make it memorable, and we're going to be doing stuff like that going forward, again, because the situation is so absurd. We have a multi-award winning journalist and publisher, nonviolent human being, who for the last almost 700 days has been being tortured in what they call the Guantanamo Bay of the United Kingdom, Belmarsh Prison, Hellmarsh Prison. 23 and a half hours a day of solitary confinement. He was not allowed to see his lawyers for 6 months. He has been denied the ability to adequately prepare for his defense after being in Belmarsh for over a year. They finally gave this man access to a computer so he could go over his legal documents. They have glued the keys down to prevent him from making notes or edits. This is real shit. I'm not making any of this. Like, this is a real shit that has happened. They've not given the man his winter clothes. They're trying to freeze him to death. There have been sub-freezing temperatures in London for several weeks. He was denied his winter clothes that were dropped off in September. He's been having to put books in the window to try and like help kind of keep some of the cold out. Wearing as many layers of clothes as he personally has in jail, but they're not winterized and they're not thick. You know, you can wear 4 pairs of socks. If they're only as thick as one real pair of socks, you're only wearing one real pair of socks. Yeah, that's just all there is to it. So that's absurd. That's absurd that there can be a political prisoner in the West who's a nonviolent human being who's facing extraordinary rendition and a show trial. And I don't know where everybody knows what happens when you go to the Eastern District of Virginia to go to espionage court. We can talk about that in a moment too. I'm trying to give like a broad overview here to encapsulate over 10 years of multiple world governments targeting a media outlet and its publisher. And the result of it is it's a lot, so much. But March 29th, there will be a hearing at, I believe, Westminster Magistrates, maybe the Old Bailey. I'm not 100% sure on the location, and I can find that for you guys and let you know. But they will decide whether or not the Julian's legal team will file a counter appeal, or if they are going to go go ahead and let a magistrate determine if the U.S.'s appeal has merit. So we're trying to get a ton of support, public support out in the street. There's been a lot growing, behind the scenes and online. We're trying to get that support to become public internationally, starting March 17th. Again, March 29th, there will be a hearing. April 11th marks 2 years from when Julian was again illegally and violently dragged from the Ecuadorian embassy after he was sold, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
The the Moreno government, Lenin Moreno of Ecuador, the U.S.'s puppet president, that we flat out interfered with the election of Ecuador to install this guy. He was given $4.2 billion in the form of an IMF loan. There was an additional $4 billion. I believe $4 billion, might be 2. Please don't quote me on that. 2 to 4 billion. I can't remember right off the top of my head. No, it was 2 because it was closer to like 7 total billion that they got from the IMF. Brand new loans, brand new measures of economic austerity for the nation of Ecuador, which has just suffered tremendously under the rule of Elena Moreno. But yeah, Julian Assange sold, citizenship from Ecuador removed with no due process whatsoever. Didn't even consult an attorney, just yanked his citizenship and gave him up to the Brits, who in turn are torturing Julian Assange on behalf of the United States, who would like to put him in prison for 175 years under 17 counts of the Espionage Act and 1 count of under SIFA, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of like 1983 or 82 or something.
Might as well set a precedence, right?
Pardon?
I said they're trying to set a precedence with that. Like, oh, we might as well just slip this in too so we can weaponize it in the future.
Multiple, because the CFAA violation, the way that they use it, it criminalizes source protection going forward in journalism.
Right.
So they're accusing Julian Assange of trying to work with Chelsea Manning to get her to provide more information. The one of the allegations is that he tried to tell her how she could protect her identity, which is something that journalists the world over do with sources every single day. It's how you keep them alive. But the weaponization of a law that was written in the early 80s because Congress watched the movie War Games and got scared should not be, and I'm not making that bit up either. That's a real thing.
No, you're
not. Investigative journalism's head shouldn't be put on a stake because Congress got scared when they watched a movie in the 80s. That's not a thing that should happen. Through this prosecution, they are also to the United States is trying to claim and get legal backing for international jurisdiction over the press. Julian Assange is not an American citizen. WikiLeaks is not an American outlet. Yet Julian Assange is being charged under the Espionage Act for publishing classified material. So additionally, the U.S. is trying to criminalize not just the publishing of classified material, but the receiving of and the sharing of classified material. So if any of us with a show share a leaked document as part of us covering the news, we could be liable for prosecution under the Espionage. If any of us in the course of our journalism received classified information, didn't even share it or publish it, merely received it, we would be liable for prosecution under the Espionage Act. That's a precedent that the U.S. is trying to set in this case. One of the things that people overlook when you get a knee-jerk reaction out of them for what they've been told the character of Julian Assange is or who he may be as a person, is all of this stuff that we just discussed. The criminalization of investigative journalism going forward, the U.S. trying to get international jurisdiction over the press. And if you don't think that other countries will look at that precedent and go, well, they did, so we can give us, you know, a report from the U.S. Yeah, sure. Brazil could do that. They could. China could be like, give us a Greek reporter for report, you know, saying bad things about us. Greece could be like, oh, somebody in Niger wrote a shit op-ed about our austerity program. That this we have found threatens the national interest of our nation. And we believe there's a legal precedent to extradite this reporter and have them tortured in our dungeons for 175 years because there's a legal justification for this already.
Yeah, if he even made it that long.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why this is so important. I mean, there are so many different ways that if we allow this to happen with Julian Assange, what is the precedence that it's going to set, not with just with journalism, reporting. I mean, but here's a man that has literally broken no laws, is not a U.S. citizen. His business wasn't in America, nothing like that. So that means we can go anywhere, punish anyone, regardless of whether or not they broke the law. So, I mean, you could say, like, oh, well, I'm following the law. Well, so is he. And he wasn't even an American. So if they can do that with him, I mean, just think about what they could do once they have, this under their belt of saying, oh, look what we did to Julian Assange. And we have to think about the scope of this. Like, how many people, we've had 3 presidents go after Assange, not to mention all their lackeys, all the coups,
all the State Departments for the last
yes,
10 years.
Yeah. And in multiple countries, it's not just us. I mean, you've got England playing a role. Everybody, like, worldwide is playing into this. So, I mean, who's pulling the strings? Who was it that he pissed off so much?
Yeah, which family? Which top 5 family? Yeah.
Who has that power to control 3 different presidents?
Well, look at the secrets that that the things that we found out because of those emails. I mean, daily I'll correct somebody because I'll be like, oh, nope, that was in the WikiLeaks, look it up. He just informed us on so many things. So he pissed off powerful people on all sides, I think. The party lines don't matter at that level.
Yeah, for sure. So, so that's why I was just wondering, like, what do you think, Steve, is like one of the biggest ways we can get through to people that are like, I don't know, like, who's Julian Assange? Why should I care? Because I know with everything going on right now, people are being evicted and just, it's, pretty much a hellscape all around the world. So, how do we get people to kind of like prioritize and, fight for Assange? Like, either small ways, big ways, what kind of ways can they help out?
This is the biggest press freedom trial in our lifetimes. It is going to determine the future of a free press. It is going to, because of that, it is going to determine the future of all activism. If there's something that you're passionate about, whether it's Medicare for all or the environment or gun rights, or if it doesn't matter, your success as an activist it hinges on your ability to communicate your message to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, without fear of the enemies of whatever it is you're advocating for. And every activist has enemies, every single one of us, without them being able to shut down your speech, to limit your reach, without I mean, all of our issues depend on securing a free press. All of our issues depend on whether or not world governments gain the legal authority to imprison and torture journalists, publishers, citizen journalists, self-publishers. Don't forget, we've got a national security directive that labels hacktivists, leaktivists, and public disclosure outlets as terrorist organizations alongside Al Qaeda and Al Nusra. I mean, this is the front line of where information goes from now. And the way that it's been weaponized in the last 4 years since the DNC leaks, really,
right.
And the Podesta emails. I mean, we need WikiLeaks now more than ever. So what people can do, my co-host on the Free Assange Vigil, Misty Winston, Sarcasm Stardust on Twitter, she's got a couple of letter writing campaigns going right now. There's a Discord server for that. There, if you get at her or get at me on Twitter or on Discord or something like that, we'll make sure that you can get over there. We are going to be doing regular events. We're looking to start doing in-person teach-ins, which we're going to be putting together for like the end of April going into May and towards the summer. But we also have a couple of teach-in videos that we've put out through our YouTube channel, Action for Assange, on YouTube and Rockfin and everywhere else. The don't let's see, Defense Assange on Twitter, the Courage Foundation. There are a number of organizations, defend.wikileaks.org, that have direct legal defense fundraisers, incredible panels that give detailed history by immensely more respectable looking people than me. And there's a ton of resources. It's what we need that we haven't had.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. And can I tell you personally why I think it's so important that we protect Assange is I was in the beginning of that 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign that was seeing these things behind the scenes, like the Pied Piper strategy. And we were just called gaslighters and told we were crazy because how the hell could we have ever came up with this? They're not rigging the primary at all. They're not, doing all these things. And then the WikiLeaks dropped and we were all vindicated with the truth. The truth was in their face. It was undisputable. It's still undisputable, no matter how much they crush it with the Russian narrative. And I will fight to the end for Julian Assange because of that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you got to look too, like the history of it. The Espionage Act came into place because of socialism. Big scary socialism when they arrested Eugene Debs in Ohio,
yep.
and took out the Socialist Party in Philadelphia. They cut off mailing privileges for like 2,000 different organizations from the post office. That's right after World War I. It was, you look at and I just because I was watching some Russian history the other day and looking at, the sparks of their revolution and it all ties in. And now we're back here, this many years later dealing with the same shit.
Yeah. And the Espionage Act has only been used ever as a political weapon. Yeah. That's the sole purpose for its existence, and it is marginally less horrific than the Sedition Act, which was passed around the same time, which got repealed. I think mid-30s. Didn't last that long. But the Espionage Act is stuck around. Eugene Debs he was in prison under the Sedition Act as well, but it got dropped while he was incarcerated. That's what it was. So he didn't have to serve out the entire sentence for it. But the Espionage Act is still here. It has never been used on a publisher, though. Right. And that's unprecedented in and of itself. They've been wanting to for so long, ever since the Pentagon Papers. And they did. The thing that people forget about the Pentagon Papers, that who point to them all the time, rightfully so in so many ways, as to why the U.S. government should not prosecute WikiLeaks or convict Julian Assange or set that precedent, because then you can go after every other new publishing outlet on the planet, no matter who they are, whenever they print something that embarrasses you personally. The Pentagon Papers case was dismissed not because of any press freedom issues. It was because Nixon's plumbers got busted breaking into Ellsberg Shrink's office, right, in order to dig up dirt on him so that they could smear him in the press. Like, that was it. It wasn't about the New York Times or the Washington Post has the right to print this because it's in the public interest, because people have the right to know, because ostensibly it's their taxpayer dollars that are paying for Vietnam, so they should know what's going on about it. That wasn't it. It was Nixon done fucked up, and that was the only reason.
Right. So we have a question from an audience member that I'm curious about too. What do you think of Assange's lawyers? Are they any good? Seriously? Like, how hard are they fighting? I know they're fighting hard, but God, they're taking on the man.
So everybody wants to armchair quarterback the legal team, and I'm not a lawyer, man. What I want and what my ideas are, and the way that especially the UK legal system or extradition court or the appellate court, where it's a panel of 3 magistrates that are picked after one magistrate decides whether or not the appeal has merit. Like, all of that is stuff that I have just had to learn crash course over the last 90 to 120 weeks. And really nobody had, but the legal team, knew what was going to happen going into the September witness hearings. The way that those were structured had to have had an effect and an impact on the way that his legal team strategized and operated. The way that I understand it, because we're close to people on the inside of those conversations, and the way that I understand it is that the legal team themselves were more or less preparing for the appeal round the entire time.
Right.
That a denial of extradition, even though the case should have been dismissed or never happened in the first place, a denial of extradition was not something that anyone was necessarily expecting. And certainly not the way that it went down, where it was marginally a win for Julian Assange,
right.
but a massive blow to press freedom. So the way that I understand it is that the lawyers have been playing for the appeal the entire time.
Makes sense.
So whatever it is that they have to wow the world with,
they're holding back,
will be coming up during that. And they could only just start to introduce the tip of the iceberg with the UC Global case during the last week of the witness rounds. If the audience isn't familiar, UC Global is the Spanish security firm that was hired to provide security at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where Julian Assange was arbitrarily detained for 7.5 years. Turns out, right after Lenin Moreno and Donald Trump were new presidents, the Central Intelligence Agency, through the head of security at Sheldon Adelson Sands Casino, approached the owner of UC Global, a guy named David Morales, who is going to prison over this, by the way, in Spain, and struck a deal with them to, while providing security for the Ecuadorian embassy, also providing real-time intelligence of Julian Assange's conversations, of his visitors. He was illegally spied on from that moment until he was removed from the embassy, again, also illegally. Every shred of Julian Assange's civil, legal, and human rights have been violated and just trampled on multiple times in basically every conceivable way over the last 10 going on 11 years.
Freaking heart-wrenching.
Yeah. But that whole story barely got introduced. There were only a couple of witnesses that were able to give statements on that. Because a Spanish judge hadn't ruled on the case yet, but during an appeal, it's likely that case will already have been over and done, and that all of the conclusive evidence from that case can then be incorporated into the appeal, where this is the magistrates panel. They aren't careerists. They're not looking to make a name for themselves. And at least the and I know that this is all just speculation or observations made in normal circumstances, whereas this case is abnormal in every single way. But the judges on the magistrates panel are at least thought to be more contemplative and more respectful of what the idea of rule of law is. So the cautiously optimistic thinking is that there's a much better chance of them coming to a more rational conclusion on appeal than there ever was going to be during the initial hearing.
So now I've heard that there's a few people that have the power to actually like free Assange. I know the president supposedly is one, but I mean, we all know how we know how the past 3 presidents have gone. So is there anybody else that is able to actually like get him out? I heard somebody mention something about somebody like the Queen of England or somebody could actually get him to freedom. So, I mean, if the president isn't going to do it, and that's been, we know how that went, is there anybody else that can actually has that power to free him? And like, what kind of leverage do we have in order to like, apply it to them?
I mean, really, honestly, you've already said the people that could. I mean, it would be a U.S. president, or it would be a UK head of state, or the Queen. And the heads of state in the UK are wholly owned subsidiaries of either the World Economic Forum or the GCHQ or MI5 or the CIA.
Bilderbergs.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not. We would have a better chance of appealing to internationally adored celebrities rather than heads of state. I'm not saying don't appeal to heads of state. Again, we do have letter writing campaigns every Monday. There are hundreds, if not thousands, hopefully thousands of letters that go to Biden's office at the White House and the DOJ. Nobody's going to let up on Merrick Garland's bitch ass.
Good. What do you think of what Jimmy Dore did by flipping Tucker Carlson? I mean, how important is it for us to get the right to get on board with this?
This is a post-partisan issue.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, it's easier to talk to people on the right about Julian Assange and about press freedom in general than it is on the left, because at least the rhetoric and the marketing on the right says you're supposed to believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the Second Amendment's there to protect the First, and both are equally as sacrosanct. And I largely agree with that statement. I do. I'm like just speaking it in kind of a joking manner because it's funny to hear, but it's, I mean, broadly true. It sucks that it's Tucker Carlson.
I know, right?
It does, because he's the guy that everybody on the left just hates, and with good reason over a long history.
True.
Not his hair.
Bow tie.
It used to be the bow tie.
Yeah, it was the bow
used
tie.
to be. Jon Stewart made fun of him on Crossfire so hard that he gave up the bow tie shortly after.
But can I tell you, I don't hate those guys as much as I hate the late night guys like Colbert and the sellouts on the left. I mean, yeah, I've always disliked Tucker and the Republicans, but now I absolutely believe the left is worse.
Yeah, I mean, the left is worse because they're supposed to be better.
Right. Exactly.
Or at least that's the way that
They
we
sell
think
it.
about it. But if you're a libertarian, you're more disappointed in your Republican friends than you are in the liberals, because you already know that liberals are authoritarian, commie censoring fucking shitheels, you know? It's, but yeah, dude, yeah, it's a huge disappointment to watch somebody like Colbert that for a couple of years there was doing like
Yeah.
comedy.
Right. But he got TDS so damn bad that that was it. He was done. As soon as Russiagate hit, he was out the door.
They saw, well, I mean, CBS, wasn't it CBS that their president that said, yeah, Trump's he might be bad for the country, but he's great for ratings.
Yeah, exactly.
And Colbert's on CBS.
Right.
Like as their big money maker too. So of course he's going to do the thing that Papa needs for ratings.
Yeah.
You know, Stephen Colbert took that job knowing that whatever balls he had before, he was going to have to remove and put in a glass jar and put on the mantle. And when he got home from CBS, he could look at him and be like, I remember. You know, but never would he be
him
able
and Trevor
to...
Noah. They got their balls in jars. I mean, it was sad to see the Daily Show just be slaughtered the way that it was.
Yeah, for sure.
Jon Stewart did like, yeah, and even like there's so much that you could look at and be like, man, Stewart really didn't.
Right. He didn't do it right.
Yeah. But he did destroy Jim Cramer and made him cry, and that was beautiful. That absolutely
to get
beautiful.
Something good out of it.
No, I mean for what Stewart was and what they could get away with on Comedy Central, he either woke a lot of people up or he made them the smug intellectual vote blue no matter who just shit libs that run amok.
Bill Maher, yeah.
Oh God, Bill Maher's just like that guy was always kind of a piece of crap. Like, I mean, just ask anybody that has ever worked with him or around him going back to the 80s or 70s. Is always just a total douchebag. But there was a point in time when he was on ABC where he would have anybody on his show. And when he got to HBO, where he was supposed to be more free, he got more neoliberal, more establishment. He had like a regular panel of just narrative management goons like Fran Lebowitz and PJ O'Rourke and freaking Michael Hayden was always on there and shit like that. Like it was just bad. And then, dude, he had George Carlin on. He had George Carlin on right before he passed away.
Well, he's rolling in his grave, I can tell you now. He's like, I fucking told all you motherfuckers. I told you for years.
He had Carlin on knowing he was doing everything he could to join that big club.
Well, he got paid for once. He got paid. He got spotlight. He had promoted. You know, that's the stick. That's what makes us different doing what we do. You know,
not in info to money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd have to pick a new line of work if that was the case. This does not pay the bills. No. It does not, and if it does pay the bills, you're not doing it right. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing a lot lately, and that's one of the reasons why I invited you on, Steve, is because like there's a lot of people out there talking about the censorship, but they're not talking about what's being censored, and that's what you and Glory do like a fantastic job. I know that we do that here, but like I feel like I'm like trying to play catch up because like every time you're talking, I'm like I got to take notes with this, like what, you know. So I mean, I'm kind of new to like I haven't been doing this for as long, so yeah, it's good to have somebody with a lot more knowledge and experience than I do. I like to surround myself with people that are, you know, smarter.
Me too.
Me
so
too.
I'm
It'll rub off
out right now, but yeah, no, I will try to answer your questions. I will.
Yeah, because I mean, like right now, I mean, I worked with like Susie Dawson and Elizabeth Boss, back in the day, before I was working like 50, 60 hours a week. And, now that I'm not doing that anymore, I can like focus on getting back into helping with like, action for Assange and all that. But yeah, I mean, there's just like so much catch up to do with that because I mean, it just in that short amount of time, what they've done to him is absolutely insane. And it's the same people that like, what you brought up earlier, the World Economic Forum. I mean, isn't just Julian Assange is one of the critical pieces, and probably one of the, first ones that I've noticed. But I mean, there's so many people that control not just with Assange, but with lockdowns, with vaccines. It's the same players over and over and over again, and that is highly disturbing. No matter like what party you're from, no matter what country you're from, it doesn't matter. That they all work for the same people. And I love that you had Whitney Webb on. And that's probably like some of your best, I know most viewed videos is ones with Whitney Webb. I mean,
we love Whitney.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to have her on. I mean, she's an absolute treasure. I mean, you ask her one question and she just will unleash like so much information. And she's very well researched, backs everything up. And so, I mean, what do you think out of all the interviews you've done with her? Like, what do you think is some of the most important pieces of information that people should know about?
Wow. Well,
that's a kind of a big question, but
yeah, I mean, you should definitely understand what the World Economic Forum is, who it's comprised of, and what their plans for us are. She's done extensive reporting on that. I mean, she's writing the Epstein book right now.
Nice.
Like that's why she hasn't been putting out a ton of content, is because she's writing a book. But I mean, the Epstein series and all of the stuff that stems from it, and this is something that she said on the show about a year ago, because she started writing the Epstein stuff in the towards the end of 2018, coming into 2019. So like a year and some change later, she said on Slow News Day that the stuff that she'd been writing about the predictive policing and AI's appearance in not just criminal justice, but healthcare and education and every other aspect of society, right, that all of these stories were sort of dovetailing into the same one, and they were just bigger, they were individual links to a larger singular object. So I think that really is the big takeaway from Whitney's work right now, is that it doesn't matter what you pick up over the last couple of years. It's going to lead you to the rest of the work, because it all finds a way to connect when you get into it on a deep enough level, because the same people that were involved in the Epstein stuff have connections to the people that were involved in Promise Software, that are now involved with Carbine 911 and predictive policing, and Peter Thiel, who's also in charge of AI and national healthcare, which bleeds over into Eric Schmidt and the National Security Council for Artificial Intelligence, which just released their big new report. And Gloria and I are going to be digging into that this week. Yeah, I mean, I really like that's kind of the heart of it. And the people that are making these horrible programs, and the people that are making horrible things happen to children and with children, and the people that are making horrible things happen in terms of legislation, they're all eugenicists.
Yep.
Like all of them.
Yep.
They're all freaking eugenicists. And people, these are unelected sociopaths who get to determine our futures, and they're fucking eugenicists, and that should be a little bit alarming.
Right.
A little concerning, yeah. That the guy that is bringing together, like Klaus Schwab, the guy that is bringing together the most powerful, wealthiest people on the planet, has a family history of Nazis. You had Johnny Vedmore on to talk about that.
So
His
does Bill Gates.
Like, holy crap, man! Bill Gates.
Big shout out to Johnny Vedmore. I will fight you for him, Whitney. I will.
I just want to
get dude. I do. If I ever have to flee the country and get myself smuggled out of here, we've got plans.
I'm glad you got a backup.
It's good to have a backup plan, especially with the stuff you're talking about.
Yo, dude, I have like 8 contingencies right now. I'm not even kidding.
Nice. Fail safes everywhere.
I can't legally fly out of the country. I was trying to go to London last year to cover the first part of Julian's rendition hearing in February, and they wouldn't renew my passport.
Yep.
And now every time I call the State Department to try and figure it out or set a court date or any of that, I get transferred, then hung up on, and then transferred, and hung up on.
Oh,
we can help you with that in Seattle.
Huh?
We can help you with that in Seattle. Come on up.
Yeah.
That's where the West Coast office is.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's one in San Francisco too.
Oh yeah.
Is
True.
what I've been, but yeah, no, they told me that there's nobody at the physical building. I haven't gone up to check.
Yeah, same problem with the IRS right now. There's nobody physically at the building.
They are. I know for a fact in 2021 they are issuing passports out of the Seattle office.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
I mean, dude, if I have to go up to Seattle to get my passport, I'll do that. I don't.
We'll take good care of you.
I'll go to Washington D.C. to fucking hold up a puppet. I'm probably make it to Seattle for a passport.
We're stoked about this. We're talking about coming out. It's short notice for us, but we would love to be on the ground with you and Convo Couch. Yeah, we're thinking about it.
It's gonna be a good. It's gonna be a good time, and yeah, the Convo Couch crew is gonna be there. Nico's gonna be coming up. Bruno Franco is in the neighborhood, so he'll be there. Well, there's a bunch of people that are turning up for this thing, man. I can't even remember who else coming. I get people like just randomly popping up on Twitter being like, yeah, I'll be there.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I want to give a shout out for our tips over on Rockfin, our Ray donations. Patrick S gave us a couple bucks. Thank you. Adriana Sandoval gave us 20 for free Assange, hands off Syria, hands off Palestine, and hands off Yemen.
Hell yeah.
Can't agree more. Thank you so much.
No, I frankly.
For a little bit. Yeah, it's interesting. If anybody was following the news over the weekend, Google had a little rearranging in their AI department, which was pretty fucking horrific. And a lot of people were seeing Twitter come down, with its new algorithms today that we talked a little bit about on Friday because of all of this and the TDS in the world. And so now it's pay to play. So people were starting to get their Twitter accounts stripped and it's
fuck is paying for tweets.
Yeah, one thing after another, it's like, what next? They so want to clamp down on the message, and we're the last stand between us and them.
It's happening so quickly now. I mean, all the 4 years of Trump that everybody was crying fascist, and then 1 month of Biden, and look at, I mean, we've got DC surrounded by barbed wire fences and troops. I mean, like, this is insane. And the Trump is permanently banned from Twitter. You've got all these people left wing, right wing, doesn't matter. Anybody that it doesn't fall in line with what they want you to say is, being banned. Congress people gone, activists gone. I mean, it's happening so fast, and and AOC calling for a list of names of people that were
report your friends. Don't let them tweet this.
So I mean, I hate to imagine what it's going to be like in another month if we don't find a way to fight back on this.
She's on some re-education camp.
Yeah, we're gonna re-educate all of these Trump supporters.
I mean, and again, dude, that's dangerous.
Very.
Yeah. Like she's the first one to say that the F-bomb is violence.
Yeah.
Right? That's violence. That. But wanting to remove someone from their house to put them in a re-education camp because they said something that hurt your fifis on Twitter.
Right.
That's fascism.
Right, exactly. It's not racism, it's fascism.
That is. And I know that they're like my friends on the right are like, I told you she was a commie. and at that point, I'm like, yo, dude, here's the thing. I don't care what kind of or what color hat the authoritarian is wearing. I don't like them. Yeah. I don't. It doesn't matter to me what color their shirt is, or where or how many stars it has on it. If they're exerting state violence to control their citizens, I'm going to oppose that. And what the US does is they merge their state violence with their corporate violence. And a merger of corporations and state, at least according to Benito Mussolini, is fascism. I don't know, man. I know that like people want to play team sports and think that like there might be, good Republicans or good Democrats, and these parties are just, I don't know, man. They're not even two wings of the same bird. They're not even wings. It's just like this homogenous blob of, I don't know, used subway tokens and freaking leftover fucking condom wrapper. Like, they're terrible. They are. They're not. Republicans and Democrats are fighting over who to censor.
Right.
Not whether or not we should, but who to censor and who to censor more. And they're fighting over which particular brown country we should be blowing the shit out of right now. Like, those are where the arguments are. At that point, you don't have political parties. You've got like middle management for a weapons manufacturing firm.
They want the contracts, baby.
Or, in which country, whose kids are we going to test our vaccine on? Right. Because I know that happened in India, countries in Africa. Yeah, it happens a lot. And one of the last videos I put up, I didn't do it. It's an interview with Bill Gates, and then there was another interview with Melinda Gates where they were asked about vaccines for children, and they sat there and said, well, I don't know. We sat there, we said, is it good that we're saving children's lives? Won't they just have more babies and overpopulate more? Like, you and I, the people that are here, the people that are watching, majority of the people on the face of this planet, ask them, would you save a child's life? Would you save a child's life? And what would they say? Duh, of course. But then they're like, I don't know. Is it really worth it? Is it going to cause more problems? These are the people that are deciding what goes into our bodies, they're watching us.
Oh, be careful. You'll be an anti-vaxxer if you say anything bad.
We got the QAnon context warning on our live stream from today.
Well, you guys went hard on it. I loved what Glory brought today.
Hell yeah. I was super happy. I have been somebody who has been very outspoken for a number of years on this, and it's a problem. And that's, everybody who fought against Monsanto, who fought against food labeling, who works in health and wellness, sees this playbook. Like, we've seen it. It's been used upon us, and so that's there's it's not like some magical angry mom fucking club. Like,
Right.
no, we really just
No, you're a terrorist now.
I mean,
Yeah.
but that's,
Oh, yeah.
that's a really good point, though. And I don't know if there are a lot of people that are presenting it that way, because it's the same sort of marketing, and then also like economic hitman tactics that correlate, or that always come along with it, are being used for a vaccine. Like
which
that,
isn't even one of those. It's unlicensed gene therapy.
Exactly.
yeah.
But,
Uncle Bill says we need 3 now, possibly. Real shocker.
But don't you dare question what's in any of them, because you're going to be an anti-vaxxer, and that's really, I see what's happening, because I was never raised anti-vax, I vaccinated my kids when they were little. I was vaccinated, but it was different. We weren't a profit-based system back then. When they vaccinated the population, it wasn't for profit motives. Now it's for profit motives, and you should have the right to question what's in them without being labeled a fucking terrorist.
You could sue a vaccine manufacturer when I got vaccines.
Exactly.
When I was growing up. You cannot do that now. So what we did is we looked at what the vaccine schedule was right before you could start, or you couldn't sue anymore.
When was that?
1986.
Yeah. And so we looked at the quantity and types of vaccines that were prevalent before that were standards, and then the ones that showed up afterwards.
Right.
So we were able to lobby for and just get a handful of vaccines for our kids based on that. And they were like, well, shit. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I'll tell you I'm a Christian Scientist right now.
Yeah.
I will, and you're not going to believe me, and I'm not going to believe me either, but the exact same thing is going to happen, and you're not going to stick some shit into my kid. So are you going to listen to the merits of the argument and agree with me that it's kind of weird, or do I have to tell you that I'm a Christian Scientist? Because I'm fully prepared to do that.
So we need to start a new religion of, like, I don't know, maybe the Church of Critical Thinkers, or skepticists, in order to get like exemption from this stuff, because I mean that might not be a bad idea.
I'm convinced that at some point everyone thinks, if I just started a religion,
Right.
Isn't that how it all goes down?
It worked for Aleister Crowley.
My brother and I had that conversation about 15 years ago, and we were going to start the Church of the Seven Deadly Sins. And the concept behind it was that in order to achieve spiritual enlightenment, you first had to go through and conquer each of the 7 deadly sins. So we were going to hold retreats, and we would have, gluttony week, that week, have lust week. Did you go through the whole thing? And if people found that they had not overcome desire for this particular deadly sin, well, that's okay, because the Lord forgives. So if you want, you can go to the back of the line again, and we start this,
Worked for the Catholic Church for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you don't sin, you have nothing to be forgiven for.
Right. It's like gambling. You can't win if you don't play.
That's right.
Where
are you getting saved from if you're not going to go ahead and sin? I mean, come on, you do think a little.
Well,
this to its absurdist conclusion.
You guys should definitely check out the Google story before we hit DC, because I think there's a much bigger picture unraveling.
It came across by feed today, and I had it queued up, not for us to cover for today's show, but to look into.
Are you going to bring it tomorrow, Amber?
I was going to bring part of it on Friday, actually, because I will be in.
Do I need to cram tonight so I know what the hell we're talking about?
No, I can. I'll give you guys the teaser. Basically, Margaret Mitchell was the founder and co-head of the Artificial Intelligence Ethics Unit at Google, and she has been fired. Because she wrote a letter stating that there were issues, and that because she included people outside of the magical wonderland of Google, that she violated their code of conduct, and so that's why they're letting her go.
Didn't she also write Gone with the Wind?
Different Margaret Mitchell, but yes. That's come up in conversation the last 24 hours too, so perfect timing. And it goes right into the religion thing, because I was reading about Rasputin last night, and
Rasputin.
I mean, it goes deep. It we have to look at what these companies are trying to do with us. We're trying, how they're going to change the media, how they're going to change the narrative, how they're going to screw us, how they're going to, make money off of it. They got to keep making money, because they know the ways that they used to aren't going to work anymore. We're not off gambling in Vegas at record rates,
Have any of you heard of an author named Micah Dean?
No,
I have not.
He's in the middle of like a 6-book series right now, but it's about decoding the Bible in order to interpret current agendas.
Oh, I would love that because I'm so obsessed with that. Steve, when I say you and I are linked, I know something happened with that goddamn Hadron Collider and those Satanistic motherfuckers. I know it, and I'm totally going to look this up.
I get random messages all the time from people that were like, I had no idea what your show was, and I stumbled across it, and you were randomly like just talking about the weasel and the collider.
Dude, I was on my feet screaming like, yes, somebody else knows.
But he'll be on the 21st of this month.
Cool.
And I'm looking forward to it. That shit just trips me out.
Me too. And everything, especially what Trump did, especially with, renaming Jerusalem the capital, and just everything, the way the Middle East is lining up with us bombing Damascus, Kashmir, what's going on in Kashmir fits in. Yeah. Prophecy.
Well, and we've got ultra Zionists in Biden's cabinet. And on the other side of that, the people that are ostensibly supposed to be putting those ultra Zionists in check are Christian dominionists.
No, gotta let the temple be built.
Same fucking rapture ready scenarios.
Yeah. No, they want it. They want it, and they're getting it. I mean, they've got the plans for this just fucking laid out right down to how many serving plates they're going to need in the new temple. I mean, this is very well orchestrated, and every administration has catered to them.
It's fucking.
I haven't gotten there my research yet, so I have no idea what any of that stuff
It'll
is.
blow your fucking mind.
You should talk to Marcus Cage. Marcus Cage. Yeah, he's on Franco's show a lot, I think.
Oh, okay.
I recognize that name. Yeah.
I think. Yeah, pretty sure it's Franco's show.
Yeah, my brain broke the other night just from all this stuff between the Great Reset and then the Time article with the election. I'm like, is this a psyop or like what is it? I don't understand. Like my brain I was like, this is just too much. It's too much. I took a little break and then I came back and I'm just like, okay, we can figure this out. So, I've processed that now. So now I can move on to like these, I guess religious. I'm
just going to say,
I don't know.
I didn't go into politics as a religious person, and I was never looking for religion when I went into this arena. But I'll be goddamned if I didn't see good and evil up close, being that close to it. And you realize that it's all relative. It's all relative.
This is the way that I see it, and it's the way that I usually try to explain it, whether it's on the show or whether I'm like just fucking hanging out and talking to somebody. Right. It doesn't matter if I believe in that particular line of thinking or that belief system or that God or that fucking baby blood needs to be,
right.
consumed on the reg or whatever. It matters if they believe it.
Right.
And if they believe it and they think that that's how they're going to attain or keep their power, they're goddamn well going to keep doing that. And if they can attribute historical significance that makes it seem like they're doing something according to prophecy, or that the horrific acts that they have to commit on the way to whatever power they're getting are preordained, and so therefore they have no control over it, they're living out destiny according to destiny's hand, then it creates this like entire sociopathic separation. And let's also not forget that these are like people that have bred on purpose to raise better sociopaths.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been going on for century after century after century, as far back as you want to go back. I mean, you can go back to, 4,000 BC, and they were still doing the same shit. It doesn't matter how far back you go. So I believe it's been carried on for many years. And you're right. It's scarier because it's about them believing it, not us believing it. You can say, oh, that's bullshit all you want. But if they're the ones out there thinking they got to do these things, they're the ones doing them. So, don't disregard when people talk about religion. I come into that all the time. And I'm like, look, I'm not a religious person. You believe whatever the hell you want to believe. I'll believe whatever I want. But we need to talk about these main world religions that have had an agenda for many, many years. Look at what the Vatican gets away with on a daily goddamn basis. And until we take, we can't tax the churches, and look at what they're doing nationwide. Are you kidding? They're feeding on the poor and vulnerable. We have to start talking about these religions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a coincidence that behind every single powerful group, whether it's Hollywood, government, religion, it's a bunch of eugenicists and pedophiles. Like this is, I mean, it's not a coincidence. They all meet up at the same parties. They all take the same airplanes, right, to the same islands.
Yeah, exactly.
They know each other. Their kids shop together. They go to each other's weddings and, rituals or whatever it is, I mean, I always thought that they saw capitalism or money as their religion, that was their that was their drug or their fix or whatever, that that's the thing that they do anything for, that overrides like any kind of like logic or reason. But I mean, it could be, I mean, like what you're saying, like I'm definitely going to look more into it, because I mean, once they're like drunk with this power.
Yeah, power.
Right? So now they're like, well, power. Now I'm a god. Now I'm righteous, and I'm preordained with these magical abilities because I'm better than everybody else. That's why I get to decide who has healthcare, who lives and dies, right? It is just, I mean, I could totally see that for sure.
I just want to give a shout out on Rockfin for our donations. We got Franklin Walbrown says Federation of Independent Media, Roar Media, is looking for a female technologist. If you or know somebody out there, we do have open spots on our board of directors. Anthony Scannell gave us another couple bucks, and Brent McKinney, such an awesome supporter. Thank you so much. We will be using these to try and get our arses to DC, because this is really important. Part of these conversations too, it's like, how did we let our military become in that inner circle of decision making is my biggest question these days. Like, how did we just free rein their power to like, here, do whatever the hell you want, invest your money here.
Get there is the question.
Yeah, I mean, because it used to be out in the open, and shit kind of went awry, but now we're like on some transhumanist crazy train, and it's we're forgetting the rights of nature, and that's such a big fight all over the world, and especially here in the US. And I've worked a lot with different organizations, but doing democracy schools and CELDEF, and really trying to get people to understand why democracy is broken and why our country is founded on such broken bullshit, and that we have to bring legal challenges to change anything at local levels. But the rights of nature, that's really what this is about. The more they can get patents and make money, the less Mother Nature gets to do anything. And that's why it's usually a bunch of moms running around saying, like, stop doing this. People don't know their MTHFR variants. And that's something you absolutely have to know before getting vaccinated. Your doctor, I almost bet all of you, go check with your doctor. They won't know how to order the test. They won't know what it means if it comes back. They'll want to send you to some freaking geneticist or something. It's absolutely imperative in the toxic environment we live in to know how these chemicals impact our body.
No, you're absolutely right. And man, in terms of the rights of nature, it reminds me of, or it's evocative at least, of like Cory Morningstar's writing, right? Because the fourth industrial revolution, and the Great Reset is about the hijacking of what's left of nature and ransoming the temporary use of it back to us in little bits and pieces, but there's no owning, there's no feeling of like communal ownership of nature. That's all gone. That's the fourth industrial revolution in a nutshell, is the total commodification of nature. That's where we need a real resistance, and instead we've got cutout groups like Sunrise Movement or Extinction Rebellion, or Naomi Klein's was 530, or and Greenpeace, and so many of these other like long-term established environmental organs, the Green Party.
Right. The Green Party, the WWF, or the Green New Deal. I mean, there's so many of them out there that are co-opted, that are supposed to, be the help.
All go back to the World Economic Forum and a number of intelligence agency cutout charities. And that, I mean, it sucks because the same people that are responsible for the destruction and poisoning of the planet are the people that this legislation is going to hand control of solving the problems that they themselves created. It's just, the money doesn't even leave the room. Do you know what I mean? Like some of it does, because some people get to put some of it in their pocket, but largely, like, it's not even leaving the room. It's being created on keystrokes in a Federal Reserve Bank, and at that point, all it does is just kind of move around a little bit to help people enrich themselves, and then it all just comes back to the same spot, and they use it all over again, and the rest of us suffer and starve and die bankrupt of preventable illnesses, and we'll get our ability to communicate with each other taken away for saying that too loud, or getting our channels accidentally seen.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I was talking about this with the Natural Progressive, like I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, and a few nights ago with Monotalk. I was like, they can't have anything that either they can't control, right? I mean, I know they is vague, but these are the powerful, wealthy families and people that run the world. They can't allow anything that they can't control or that cuts into their profit. And that is exactly what nature is. There's a reason like why that, now that you have all these genetically modified seeds that, that will, they were talking about somehow they'll mix with other farmers' seeds and it will change their
Right.
crops, and so
does.
then they have to pay
Yeah.
Monsanto,
Yeah.
right? I hope
Yeah.
I'm saying this right, but then they have to pay Monsanto for growing their product. And so now you can't have anything. That's why we don't have, apple trees or orange trees in public spaces, because that cuts into capitalism. You can't have something like that, or people might just go off and start, being, self-sustaining out somewhere. That's why you got Bill Gates.
Never.
He's got, the Impossible Meat. He's buying up all these, farmlands. I mean, this is very sinister, and for people to sit there and say like, oh well, that's a conspiracy theory. Like, oh, okay, who is he? Like some evil overlord, But that's what happens when you get that much power and money. Like, you think that this is your right to control people like this, and he's not the only one that thinks like that. I mean,
he was raised like that. His father is a deeply embedded, deeply since like the 30s. I mean, he was raised with that. We got to cut the population back.
Yeah, and you got to ask yourself, when's the last time any of these corporations, anybody in government, has ever done anything to help us? When have they ever had a moment where they put people before profit or before power? They have.
Come on.
They sacrifice us at every single turn. This is eugenics. When you send poor people to kill other poor people in other countries, it's eugenics when you get to decide who has health care and who doesn't. Or
Stevie, Coca-Cola brought truckloads of Dasini water. Come on.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Texas.
There's multiple layers of problems. But yeah, I mean, this is not crazy. Oh, the people that don't give a shit about us are what? They're plotting against us again? Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
No, that's what they do.
What I love is the World Economic Forum video that trolled everybody.
Yeah.
Where they're like, the Great Reset, what's that? Right. They're like, well, it sounds like a secret cabal of elite billionaires meeting behind closed doors to decide the fate of the future, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But don't worry, that's not a conspiracy, even though that's the literal dictionary definition of what a conspiracy is people meeting behind closed doors to plot the future outcome of events. But we can put it on
Iron Man.
If I say it on a stream, I'm QAnon.
Right, exactly. And speaking of that, I'm so thankful that you have made media connections with Jason Burmis. I'm a huge Burmis fan. I was there before We Are Change, maybe Loose Change days. And I went through his We Are Change days with Luke, and I didn't always, agree, but I could see that there was something with them that was much more in touch with reality and the truth than anything I was seeing from, the left stream independent media. And I think it's so important that you guys are crossing those boundaries. And
Burmis has become a very good friend over the last couple of years now, and I feel I feel very fortunate for just having that guy around. Man.
Right.
He's one of the good ones. He really is.
He's got me through a lot of times, that's for sure. Like, okay, what's Burmis's opinion on this? Yup.
It's funny, man, because he was starting to, the cheese was sliding off the cracker a little bit around maybe August. No, July. I think it was July. It was right. Yeah. It was like I called him. I'm like, you okay, buddy? He's like, bro, I could use a hug.
Well, he has so many of the, the QAnon people and stuff that had watched his streams for years. And so for him to call them out blatantly for so long, hey, you guys are freaking idiots, knock it off with this shit. So it was tough. He took a tough road to hold the mirror up in front of a lot of people's faces. And, I just like him for it. So I'm a supporter.
Well, he's a real one. I'm glad he's around. I'm glad that he's doing well. Despite YouTube screwing him over
hard.
and then GoFundMe screwed him over,
Right.
and then another site screwed him over. I don't know if he has a Patreon or not. Honestly, I don't know.
They took that down a week ago or so.
Okay, yeah. And then I took ours down after they took Ryan's down. I didn't do anything with it anyway. I kind of felt bad for the people that were donating on it. I've been asking people to support us on Rockfin if that's what they were going to do. But yeah, that was the last straw. It was, and and Ryan's another one of those people that, like, we legit become friends over the last couple of years. The same with Whitney. Like, when people get fucked with in independent media and my phone rings and it's Whitney calling, I'm like, oh shit, yeah. But Beely's become a good friend. Really, I worried sick about her for a while yesterday when I couldn't get a hold of her because Israel bombed Damascus while she was live on the fucking stream with us.
Wow.
But it was in a different part of the city from where she lived. But like, she was stressed coming into the interview because she only had X amount of mobile data left that she could use to have her X amount of internet left, because they buy internet by the megabyte, I guess. In Syria, you get little cards that give you like X amount of data that you could use, and that's your internet.
Oh, like a hotspot. When I would travel on the front lines, like Philadelphia or Chicago, I take one of those with me and buy so many megabytes to put on it.
Yeah. But that's like the totality of how their internet works.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they have a very secure, connection.
Well, she's also going through like 7 or 8 VPNs.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to need tunnels to Iceland soon.
If the BBC was like making it so you're not allowed to have a Twitter account, yeah, dude. Yeah, I would be running some VPNs too, man. And it's not like, dude, she's got to stick out. She's like 6'1" and blonde in Syria. Right? Hard to stay incognito that way. I think. I don't know.
Stevie, you got some miners in West Virginia. I think we can start a tunnel to Iceland.
I mean, that's what we do here. Is we're known for our digging abilities. Yeah,
I've been looking at property around there, around by like the Kentucky or Tennessee border.
Oh, it's beautiful there.
Tennessee's got a little bit more going on. I mean, they've got actually like somewhat of a better economy than we do here, and also they've got like there's a few towns that are actually getting some stuff done when it comes to like internet and but then there's also the towns that they put up the billboard of like keep our town white. So I mean, it's a mixed bag.
I don't want towns. I want like 500 to 1,000 acres, and we'll build a town.
Now, I don't know. West Virginia might actually be. I got to look into like what Kentucky's like, but if that's what you're wanting to do, then probably either Kentucky or West Virginia.
I think Kentucky is beautiful. I was shocked at how beautiful Kentucky is, but the only problem I had with Kentucky was too many Republicans and dry counties, man.
Yeah. See, I don't drink, so it doesn't really affect. And I still consult on moonshine stills, but I made fucking moonshine for a while.
Did you hear Pompeo's fucking CPAC address where he pretty much admits that his grandpa was a sheriff of a town back in the day and he was running for re-election when his still blew up in the basement? So I just took away from the story that crime's been in their family for many years.
Yeah. Total disrespect for what the position they're in is supposed to stand for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Complete disregard for the rules as they apply to them. Yeah. Pompeo's a stand-up guy, and I'm not even considering like trying to like literally build a town and incorporate it. I'm just trying to. So I don't know where you guys are at in terms of what you think the world's going to look like in a decade, but if the entire West has leaders of their nations that were using World Economic Forum language and sloganeering in their own campaign material, and those people are elected.
We are the blue wall, man. We are the blue wall. We know exactly where we're going to be. We're going to be in our districts.
I mean, basically, so if that's it, according to UN Agenda 2030, it's only major metropolitan areas that they're going to do that shit in, and rural areas are going to be left to like rot.
They want to. They don't want rule.
The last fully human species, and we will not go with them on their journey into the next stage of human evolution, which is to cease to become humans eventually, and if that's the case, find me in the woods. I mean, like,
I'm in the woods. I gotta say, I'm in the woods.
I know a number of people that have been preparing for this exact thing for a number of years in like much more micro settings, like a couple of families sort of thing. But I mean, that's basically what Derek Brose's freedom cells are like networks of pockets of civilization that aren't going that particular route. So I'm in my mind am already trying to organize that network and get mutual aid systems and trade and whatever else it is that we would need to be able to be independently cooperative autonomous states.
I agree. That's one of the most important things that we're going to need to look to do in the next 5 to 10 years. That's what Chris Hedges says too. This empire is on fire. It's going down in flames, and it's going to be up to us to take care of each other as human beings. And, mutual aid is going to be everything, I think, for our small little communities.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely working on intentional communities and looking at land and making that network thrive throughout many states and many parts of the world, hopefully, is the plan. But, I'll let you know when we have ham radio lessons. We'll all need them.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing, too, is that ham radio antennas have been getting taken down and called obsolete or even criminalized in a handful of places. And there's no legitimate or non-sketchy reason for that.
Yeah.
It's not as if the Al-Qaeda invaded like Wharton, Nebraska, and wants to, talk to somebody about the tides off of Big Sur.
Well, even in Alaska, where I'm from, the channel 16 UHF channel went down, which is kind of a big deal, in a state like Alaska with a fishing community. So it's, they got some work to do.
Yeah. 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 So that's all. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't like sounding so doom and gloom.
Welcome. We are the Dames of Doom.
I really don't, but I'm also I know what these guys are all about. I do. Right. And they tell you. They're not shy about any of it. It's just it's so horrific that processing what Bill or Melinda Gates say when they, express morbid glee at depopulating the earth. Yeah. Thinking about that and realizing what it means is heavy.
It is.
And most people are already under so much heavy that thinking about that and understanding what that means and applying that to how it's going to directly impact their lives is too much. It's too much. and I've seen people try to unring the bell and they can't, you know. And because everybody breaks different, it manifests in some weird ways.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
I
that's
agree.
what, see, that's what we've been kind of debating on. That's what we're trying to do with our website, partyexodus.org. It's just like, it's just information. It's a toolkit for people to do what they want to do. So it's connecting people to, like Derek Rose and his, like the freedom cells. I mean, because I think like I don't see that they're going to just let us. I mean, because they don't anywhere in the world let anybody have anything because it makes our government look bad because it's like, hey, how come they can have healthcare? How come they can have these things, right? So they have to like destroy that every chance, anytime they see that. So like the way that I saw it is like we need like three groups of people, right? Like one group to like build a new, like a better kind of system, maybe one to like break down the old system, and then another to do like what we were just talking about, which is like I don't know, just like sustainability, taking care of the community, making sure that people don't fall through the cracks or stuff like that. People have a roof over their head, food, shelter, all that. So I mean, but it seems like a lot of work, but there's already a lot of people like doing that kind of work already. Is just kind of working together, steering people in the right direction. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that?
If you've read Cypherpunks, the end of the foreword, the Julian Assange writes says, our task is to secure self-determination where we can, to hold back the coming dystopia, or yeah, if our task is to, if possible, to secure self-determination where possible, to push back against the coming dystopia while we can, and if all else fails, to accelerate its self-destruction.
Wow.
So the system that we live under in the West, which is approaching technocratic fascism, what Whitney calls a technocratic panopticon, which is essentially just those districts, but on a much larger scale. That's not a sustainable model, and the pathway to get there isn't sustainable either. Like, we're currently living in the unsustainable part of the pathway to getting there. That's what we're seeing with a planet knocking on the door of legitimate free fall in terms of the ability to grow food outdoors or to have 4 seasons that aren't Arctic and on fire. So it's hard to hide that, right? Like you can only hide the fact that your house is full of roaches as long as the rug ain't moving, right? And the rug's moving. Like, it's halfway across the living room and people can see that shit. You know what I mean? So you either have to constantly distract them and keep them ratcheted up in fear and keep them in a perpetual state of confusion so that they can't think about it, or when they do think about it, it's that one thing that makes all the heavy way too heavy, and they break. And then depending on how they break, you could either use that person or discard that person in your technocratic panopticon. But what you can't have is somebody who, when they break by pushing back, so that's where the censorship comes into play. That's where the rounding up of journalists and publishers that say things and print things that governments don't like come into play. That's where putting Julian Assange's head on the proverbial spike silences an entire generation of journalists without even having to criminalize investigative journalists. The chilling effect that Julian Assange's illegal and arbitrary incarceration has had on journalists, even in independent media, just over the last 2 years, is just disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Not to mention the
grosses-
self-censoring. I mean, we're all self-censoring at some level.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, man. Like when you do this for a living, you end up finding out way too much, way too quick about people that you didn't want to know a goddamn thing about, right? So there's all that shit that you got to walk around with too. And I've got people that call me to work their shit out. You know, I like my Twitter handle says involuntary therapist. It fucking, and it's not that I don't love it. Like I do. I was actually thinking about doing a call-in show where I give unlicensed advice.
Oh, you should do it.
Call. We're thinking about calling it "Get Your Shit Together."
Get your shit together is perfect.
That's not the point that I was trying to make. What I was trying to say though, man, is that like it's so weird walking that line of self-censorship because you want to be able to call everybody out for everything, but at the same time some of that shit just really ain't nobody's business and you don't have any business knowing it either.
Yep.
You know, so is it self-censorship really? Because I'm a big fan of mind your own business.
Yeah, me too.
Like I'm a big fan of that. I'm a personal privacy advocate and believe heart and soul in transparency for the powerful and privacy for the weak. And by the weak, I don't mean like some, little freaking girl. I mean, we don't have any fucking agency. If anything, we deserve some privacy. If we're not going to have agency, at least privacy, seems like a reasonable thing that will allow us then to help better organize for some agency. It sucks, man, because independent media could be so much better, and it's not. And it's not because people lack the courage to say or do the right things. It's because there's no financial incentive in telling the truth.
Yep.
I agree.
There's a lot of people that come right up close to it. There's people that tell degrees of a truth, and there's people that will tell the truth about a thing, and not go near several other things. And my barometer for whether or not I'm donating to your channel at this point is 9/11 or the Great Reset. If I haven't heard you talk about those two things, can't fuck with you.
Yeah. That and the weasel and the hydron. Like what? You don't know about that?
I
hope you're all taking notes.
I've had a couple. I've had like even a couple of friends of mine that host shows now are like, oh man, I think you might be
about time, right? We've been screaming it for 4 or 5 years now. So we were just crazy tinfoil hat wearers, right? I have brought that Satanistic dance video from the opening of CERN and showed it on many of my shows, and people can't even wrap their freaking minds around what they're seeing. Like, look at it. Oh, I'll send it to you.
Oh my gosh.
It is intense.
It's intense. You're just like, oh my God, it's so blatant. It's so in your face, but that's the rules. It has to be in your face. So that way you will look through it and past it, as, oh, this is fantasy.
There's that. And then there's also it absolves them of any negative karma or negative, any blowback if they declare the intent up front.
Yeah, exactly.
Let you know.
They
And
always
can
give
be
you
like,
Science.
well, I was honest and open with my intentions. So
Yeah.
if you didn't pick up on it, that's entirely up to you. But we told you in so many ways. We told you. And again, man, it doesn't matter if we believe it.
They believe it.
Matters if they believe it, because if they believe it, they're going to do that in order to get the things that they want.
Aren't they building a bigger one too?
Yeah, there's a bigger one now. It's gonna be like the size of Texas or some shit.
Half the size of Switzerland.
Well, and this one's gonna have quantum computing that's at a much higher level than the last one was at.
Perfect. 100 kilometers long.
Oh yeah, then you
know.
can start talking about black holes and next
Time
levels
travel.
type shit. Yeah, next dimensions.
And these are all the same people that are like, yeah, the fabric of reality is in fact incredibly thin, and we live directly up against a number of other parallel dimensions. So we're going to build a large hadron collider that is much larger than the current large hadron collider, and what could possibly go
wrong? We don't know. We're just looking for answers. I read Oz sent me an article yesterday about a black hole that is eating stars and spaghettifying.
That's for me.
Was that from you? Oh my God, they're bouncing off Antarctica. That's crazy.
And just magically, Antarctica at the same time loses a big giant chunk, largest iceberg ever.
I saw that. The crack in that
Perfect.
thing is insane.
Next, we'll be drilling. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
A lot of
Drill, baby,
resources
drill.
there. A lot of resources in other dimensions. It's all about the resources, baby doll.
We're going for the unobtainium, aren't we?
Yeah, the
We are.
unobtainium.
Dude, no, I one of the weird things I do besides follow quantum physics is I get a lot of the DARPA subscribed newsletters. So what they put out to the public, and they are all about space mining. That is Raytheon's bread and butter right now. It is fucking hilarious and frightening and awful, all wrapped into one.
Well, what do you think we're doing on Mars? We ain't there to look for life or water.
Taking a look, finding skulls.
Yeah, getting rocks. We're getting rocks for our collection.
We're not building a mini mall.
Obviously, they're all out of business where I live.
We're not building schools. We're not building factories. None of that shit. It amazes me that I get that things are shitty, right? Times are tough. Been a long year, and it's only the 1st of March.
Yeah.
2020 was a decade, and it lasted 365 days.
Felt like one.
It was simultaneously the fastest and slowest year of my life. It was like Schrodinger's painful fucking unknowable period of time, at any rate. Oh shit, I lost it.
That happens. We're all ramblers. We do.
Never mind. I'm sure it was.
Next time.
Yeah. I got lost in the descriptions of time. It really has been a fucking weird, like, January this year seemed like it took forever. I left for DC on January 1st. And I got back on January 7th, and it felt like I was there for a month.
Right. You were there a long while. Let's hope this year picks up.
I left to go hold an event or two on to raise awareness for Julian Assange's rendition trial, and I came home a domestic terrorist.
Well,
badge of honor.
Badge of honor. I think any of us, I get fucked with TSA anytime I try to go across the country, and I have since 2016. Just hit a couple of those lists, and they're questioning you and pulling you aside. I just say, bring it on, whatever, go through my shit,
When I went to Denver to go take part in, speak at a couple of International Human Rights Day events, on my flight back. Well, okay, so I did my show. I called the airport. I just felt a little weird. Wanted to make sure I had the time of my flight right, gate of my flight right, was about to call for my transportation, and they're like, no, you don't have a flight. What do you mean I don't have a flight? And for the last like 24 hours at that point, my phone had been telling me that there was no SIM card detected. And I would turn it off, reset it, and sometimes it would kick back on. Sometimes it would take like 5 or 10 times of resetting it. And then I would start to get a flood of texts and emails from like 3 months back. Like it was trying to catch up to itself. And so the airline tells me, well, you got an email. And I'm like, funny you should say that, because no, I haven't. They told me that my airline had suspended flights until the following Tuesday.
Wow.
There's snow on the ground in Denver. It's cold, but clear blue sky.
Well, that's a huge airport. I think they know how to de-ice the runways there, you know.
That's an airport with underground tunnels underneath.
Oh, I know.
Also.
Don't even get me started on the Denver airport. We don't have enough time.
So they tell me, I'm like, well, can I get another flight? And they're like, well, no, because they're not flying out till Tuesday. We can book you on a flight for Tuesday. And I'm like, I have to be at work in California tomorrow, 8:00 in the morning. How's that going to happen? They're like, well, you have to get another flight. So because I booked through a third-party app, they couldn't refund my money. Only, I think it was Frontier, maybe could refund my money. They never refunded my money, by the way. I book another flight. I pay like almost $500 out of pocket that I didn't really have. This was literally 2 weeks before Christmas. And I'm a late shopper.
Very late.
And so I'm quite literally spending my family's Christmas money to get back to my house because my flight vanishes. And I get onto the plane to leave, and I see a Frontier airline plane come taxi in and land. And I see a Frontier airline plane come and take off on the runway while they're de-icing us. It's taking them now like 45 minutes to de-ice my plane. I've seen 3 other planes go get de-iced and leave, including another Frontier Airlines plane. So I get home the next day. I call Garland Nixon because he had called me the day before to tell me about his flight getting fucked with when they were trying to leave Venezuela. And that's a fascinating story that I believe Garland's told a couple of times that he tells it way